Welcome back to Warhammer Man Studios. Today we're going to be working a little bit more on our Custodes jet bikes. These are the Dawn Eagle jet bikes, and we did a conversion and some magnetization in some previous videos. And then we also have a Vexilus Praetor, the standard bearer for the Custodes, and we're just going to be doing like a start to finish basically. Here we have started off with our gold Retributor armor color, and now we're going to come in with our Reikland fleshade wash, and we're just going to go over all the surfaces, pretty much everything, just out of convenience, and then we're going to go back and do like our silver next, etc., and we'll work through there. So all we're going to do is just start with one of our jet bikes, and we're just going to take our Reikland fleshade and just pick a spot, and we're just going to fully cover the entire thing with a nice liberal coat. You want it to be just running down everything, and wherever it pools up, we're just gonna let it gather, and then we'll come back with our brush and we can kind of just move it around to where we want it to be. And it's important too that as we're covering these, that you're putting plenty on here and just letting it run down wherever it wants to go, because that way it's going to get the full effect, and then you want to just dab away like the excess. But if you try to like skimp out on using it, or you water it down or anything like that, you're not going to get like the full oily effect. It's not going to sink down into the cracks like the correct way, and gather and pull up and everything. As we're just kind of going through and getting a nice coat on everything, just a nice even one, and then I'll just kind of look back at whatever I did last, and just make sure nothing's pooling up in any of our like trouble spots or anything. And if it is pulling up a little heavy, or I don't like how like the color's starting to set, you can go ahead and just kind of move it around with the paintbrush and get it where you want it to be, and you're happy with it, or pull a little bit away or add a little bit in if you need to, just to make sure that you get the desired effect. And then that way, by the time it's dry, you've already checked it over and made sure everything's going to look good when it's all finished and done. That way you don't have to do extra like painting over it or fixing mistakes. And in the event that you do have a spot that's a little too dark, or the shade kind of collected or left a funny like tint or tone or anything on it, it's not hard to fix in the next stage with like just a little bit of like dry brush of that same gold color right back on top. The area where it settles a lot of time is going to get painted over anyway, so it doesn't even matter. It's just going to get naturally fixed in the next step. But again, we're just going over everything, and then like obviously if you know a part's like fully like clothing or whatever is going to get painted over later, that's fine, you don't need to worry about it. But I just assume in this step like cover pretty much everything and just make sure I don't miss a spot, rather than worrying about like wasting a little bit of like the extra wash on a spot that doesn't need to get it basically. So it's basically just about like laying it on heavy, pulling off a little bit when it is laid on how you want it to, and just making sure that where it does pull up, it's not pulling up like excessively to where it doesn't look good, and you're gonna have to do a bunch of work to correct it later on. Alright, now here we've gone through and given everything a nice coating of the Reikland fleshade, and as you can see, we've just kind of put on a nice coat, let it drip down where it needs to go, just make sure that it's not like all over the areas that we don't want it to be. And anywhere it pulls up is just going to get pulled downward by gravity. So when we stand things up like the shield, it's essentially just to simulate how it's going to stand up in reality. That way, the weight of the shade pulls it down by gravity, not necessarily just into the recesses like we would want it to. So in order to get the correct effect, we want to make sure everything is standing up and positioned correctly. Like we don't want that shield just laying down on its side, because then the gravity is going to pull the shade towards like different areas that it would, as opposed to when it's standing up like that. So we just kind of have it propped up on him. But there we have, this step is done. We're just going to let that dry for a little while, and then we'll come back and we're just going to do like a dry brush with that same Retributor armor, and just kind of brighten everything back up now that we darkened up the cracks. Alright, and now that everything is completely dry and our wash is nice and set in there, we're just going to come back through with the Retributor armor, and we're just going to do a dry brush layer back over top of everything, and essentially all that's going to do is just kind of brighten it back up and give it like a little bit more of that sheen back. I like to use like a piece of paper or a paper towel for this, so it actually like absorbs the moisture out of the brush, and like naturally helps to like dry off the paint. But you want to get it to the point where like 90% of the paint is like off the brush, maybe more. And then you just want to run it over, like flick it over the edges, the same way as we do with like the basing techniques. So we're just going to take it here and we're just going to basically like flick it over the raised areas, and all it's going to do is just bring back a little bit of that sheen. And we're just going to go through and basically just do that over the whole model, and we're just looking to bring back some of that like brightness to it, and then it's going to really bring out like the shading down in the crevices. And you can kind of do it to your liking. If you like a little bit more or a little bit less, that's fine, but the idea is just to give like the model a little bit of extra depth. So we're just going to go around and just do like all the surfaces of everything that we've painted so far, and just get that nice little look back that we kind of like dulled down with the wash. And then like I said, it's going to give it a little more like life, a little more like three-dimensional kind of brightness to it. And then when we come back in with some of our other colors later on, it's going to really make it stand out, because it's going to have so much more depth than if we just had like one coat of gold, no wash, none of the extra bonus stuff that we like add in to give it like the extra look and the extra brightness. And again, we're just getting most of the paint off our brush, and we're just going to go through and make sure that we get it all over. We especially want to get it on like the top areas, like on the top of the standard, top of the shoulder pads, the head, anywhere that would be getting hit like the most by light, like natural lighting. We want to make sure that we get that to be like the brightest of our golds. And then down like in the recesses, the cracks, the areas you don't see as much, it's much less important obviously, and that's where like a technique like this really shines. And then once he's all said and done there, we brought back like a lot of that brightness, and then we kept like the darkness down in the cracks. So we're just going to go through for each of our individual pieces, and we're just going to do the same thing. And if later on an area is not going to remain gold, it's not as big of a deal obviously. So like the majority of this shield is actually going to be silver when it's all said and done. So the areas we're focused on is like the outline and the eagle part of it, as where like the inside part, like the wing portion of it, is going to be painted silver. So we're not as worried about that. But again, we want to focus on like the top areas and the areas that are going to get like hit by natural lighting. But we don't need to worry about like the shoulder here, because that's going to have like a shoulder pad over it. The back of the shield doesn't need to be like as bright or highlighted, because it's going to be like tucked up against his body. So we just want to like bring out the sides and like the ridges just a little bit on that. Do each of our individual pieces, the white next here. And if you want to switch over to like a bigger brush like that, you can. And if you want to keep it on like a small one and do like I was doing, a little more like detail, a little more control, you can do that as well. That's what I'm going to just stick with this guy here. But again, we just want to run it against the ridges. Alright, so now we got all the gold highlighted back with Retributor Armour, and got the recesses nice and shaded. We have a clean coat on that. We're going to go back through with our Leadbelcher now, and we're going to pick out all of our silver details. And the Leadbelcher is going to give us like a nice darker silver that we could like wash and still darken up but have a nice color. But then also we could highlight it as well obviously and bring it back bright, and so we get a nice tone out of it as well. So whatever you decide you want to do, I like to paint like all the little wings on the standard bearer, like all the little eagle wings and everything. I like to go through and do eagles on his legs here, and any little details like the crux on his chest here as well, or stomach rather, and then the little like bolts of sort of like lightning on his chest as well. So alright, so now we went through and did all the silver in Leadbelcher, and just picked out like all of our metal details that we didn't want to be gold on all the models. And now we're going to go through and in this case specifically for this commission, we're doing purple as the accent color. Typically I would do red in most cases, but we're going to go through with that purple now and just pick out some of the details. So for instance, we want to do like the plumes with our purple. So we're going to start with the Hormigant purple and just do like a nice thick coat on everything that's going to be purple here, and then we're going to like bring it to like a brighter purple with our highlights and everything, and we're actually going to darken it up with a little bit of wash as well. But we just want to get like a nice even coat And if you have a piece like this, you can either glue it onto a sprue where it glues to the guy's heads, or you can just paint them like half at a time. And then also we're gonna do like on our shoulder pads, we're gonna have like that bit that's in the middle. We're just gonna go through and essentially just pick that out very carefully and just fill that in. We just want to block it out with color, and then we want to do like a real nice job here and make sure we don't mess up anything that we've already painted. But then we're going to come through back later with the wash and take care of some of that some of those little edges and make sure we get like a perfect little seamless blend between them, and then we'll brighten it up with a couple of highlights and really make those stand out. So we just want to go through and basically just block out all those bits and everything. I use my like fingernail or my actual finger a lot of times when I'm painting, to either like brush off my paint or just make sure I have like a circular tip or the exact amount of paint on it. So that's why you'll see that a lot of times with a lot of like experienced painters. And then also I'm going to do like the pants on these guys are going to get that accent color as well. So we'll go through and we'll do our pants here and just get like a nice even thick coat with that. And then we're also going to go through as well and do like our little robes. So we just want to go through there very cleanly and just make sure we don't get any of our armor or anything. But we just want to get a nice thick base with that Hormigant purple. And then we're going to come back later on with the wash and darken it up. And then we'll pick it out with some nice bright highlights and really make that purple stand out and pop. Alright, everybody's starting to come together real nicely now. We went ahead and did all the purple for like all the cloth. We do want to do like the leather for the like gloves and a couple other spots now. So we're going to pull out our Mournfang brown, and we're just going to go through and pick out like the glove details for like the leather pieces on them. So we want to just look at the bottom here, and you can see where the cloth is. We're just going to paint like the actual leather part itself. And then when we go back through with the wash over top of both these colors, it's going to give us our low lights for both like the purple and the brown. I'm going to go through real carefully. Just want to make sure not to get it on any of the details that we've already painted. But if we do, it's not a big deal to go back through and touch it up. But if possible, we always like to be working forwards, never backwards. So we don't want to hit any of the parts that we've already painted. Alright, and then we're just going to go ahead and go through and do that for all the models.